Hey everyone, and welcome back. This is the Happy Cat here, and I am super excited to share today's video with you guys because if you don't know, a few months ago in the summertime, I made a video saying that I was going on a journey, going on a hiatus from this channel to spend all my extra free time on making some kind of game. And it's kind of funny because I ended up not really going on a hiatus. I ended up posting about once a month, which was already the rate that I was setting for myself. So I think it was great because it showed me how much I can really do if I organize my time well. I worked on this game maybe about once a day. Once again, this wasn't full time, it was evenings, weekends, free time, but still I had tasks split up. If you look at my productivity video, I literally did it this way. I just had a bunch of tasks split up so that even if I could only do one 30-minute chunk of something, that I could check that off a checklist. So I worked on it about every day and I still had room to occasionally make videos. So that was super awesome. And I think it also reaffirmed that truly I do love the process of making games, making art. I love the fact that it's a combination of art, animation, writing, software. It's all of my favorite things, and I really enjoy the process of sitting in my room for hours and hours working alone and then sharing an output with you guys. I realize that's my favorite thing. So I mentioned in that hiatus video that my goal is to make a gameplay concept, the minimum viable product, just one contained scenario to get an idea of the elements that I'm really interested in playing with. And so that's what I've done. I finished it ahead of schedule. My goal was just to get it out before the end of 2017. And so keep in mind, the demo that you will be shown has all the story gutted from it. There's no art. In fact, probably all of the art combined, every drawn thing you see took a combined time of 10 minutes to make in MS Paint, a couple things I made in GIMP when I was testing GIMP and Krita and stuff. It was basically just, I need something that's 400 by 300 for a table, so I'm just gonna draw a square and pop it in. So there's really no art, there's no sound. I have a lot of story and world building written, but I didn't want to put it in this demo because I actually really like the story and how it's turning out. And even if this particular game or concept doesn't go anywhere, I'd really love to use the story somewhere else, and I'd like you guys to actually discover that plot as I would intend you to. But there is enough story there so you get a feel for who the characters are and kind of what you're supposed to be doing. So I guess without further ado, I'm going to make a second episode. You could call this a first devlog. I'm going to make a second one that's more lengthy, podcast style, talking about what specifically I learned technically and creatively if you're interested in the development process. So this one, I'm just going to show you guys what I made. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to HARDBOILED. In a nutshell, HARDBOILED is a fantasy mystery game where you have the freedom to investigate and accuse any character in the game at any time of the crime you're trying to solve. So you play as Abigail, who is a new recruit for the Squash Squad, which is a small crimes division of knights in a magical kingdom. And so this world has already won their wars against the big bads and the evil monsters. So now the knights are primarily focused on keeping the peace within the kingdom and dealing with all of these different strange creatures and animals and people that are all trying to live together. So less about combat and more Phoenix Wright legal and detective skills. And each case you solve is basically one big interconnected puzzle where you can go out in the world and investigate freely, you can talk to whoever you want, and in order to find new leads, instead of having this on-rails linear feeling where you're just kind of reading dialogue as you find things throughout the game, you take all the clues you've collected and do these sort of logical analysis puzzles to find new leads to then go back out in the world and see what you can do with that new information. And then finally, as you go through and investigate and analyze, if you feel confident that you have enough evidence to accuse someone, you can attempt to bring them to court, basically. I know my goal with this video is to see if you guys are warm to the idea, if there's a niche for this, if there's certain areas that resonate with people, others that need work, because this concept is the game I would make if I was making a game just for me, which I find is the best way to go. Because it's almost better to try to make a game that a small group of people will really think is cool, rather than try to make something that, you know, everyone might kind of like. So now we'll get into the demo itself. If you are a current or former patron of any amount, you will get a download link to play this. It's not because I'm trying to gate it around money. It's because I'm not really ready to show it to the world yet. It's still pretty buggy, and you'll see it's very basic. I'd love to do a free public demo if there's interest. Most likely sometime next year. This is just for the people who are genuinely interested in like what I specifically am working on. It's just kind of a bonus for you guys. But right now I'm not ready to share it openly yet because it's so early in development. But without further ado, let's take a look at HARDBOILED. Alright, so here's our title screen. Like I said, I removed all extraneous details just to not get too caught up in other stuff and just focus on the gameplay. So let's start a new game. And so we kind of have an opening cutscene, so you at least get a feel for the characters. So here we have Abigail kind of pretending like she's this cool detective. It's always been her dream to be a knight and to be a detective. And so she's kind of caught pretending in her boss's office. It's her first day, and Archie is actually, I know they're both colored rectangles. Like you can see, I added a little more detail in the room, but the room used to be just an MS Paint rectangle. This purple thing is supposed to be a bookshelf. So Archie is actually a giant eagle, and he is the head of the Squash Squad. And so Abigail's very first case as the new recruit is to figure out who stole Archie's cookies. This was actually just born out of when I was trying to design the most basic mystery possible. I was like, okay, just think of a really simple conflict. And it was who stole the cookies, person A or person B. So the characters' names are literally A and B. So we have Abigail, this little red person, we have Archie, and we have A and B, who we'll meet in a sec. And A and B probably will have real names later on, but right now they are literally just called A and B from how I was designing the game. So as you can see, we're kind of asking him some questions as we progress through the game and have different items or clues. He might have more options. So we go to leave. And we were recommended to go check the bookshelf. So this is the bookshelf. And then this is a tutorial showing us how our notebook and the puzzle system works. So like I said, I'm going quickly through this dialogue. If you're a patron and you want to look through it more carefully, you'll get a download link. So here we have our notebook. So we have clues over here, and this will scroll as we get more than 3 clues. And we have physical evidence here. We don't have any yet, but I'll show you guys. And this is the only suspect we met so far. This is, in fact, a default portrait, but eventually they would each have the same portrait that's in their dialogue, and also the dialogue will have more varied portraits. But we can drag things to decide if someone's guilty or not, and I'll show you guys that in a second, but these right now aren't applicable to Archie at all yet. So let's click, it said click on Analyze Clues, and we get a little tutorial on how to use this sort of analysis window. And so this is the most basic tutorial puzzle. So Archie went to the kitchen at 4, left his plate of cookies, returned to his office around 4:05. And then Archie noticed the plate was gone at 4:30. So this is the tricky part where I really need to work on the design very carefully and the wording of clues. Because basically you try to connect clues together by finding what logical relationship might make sense. And you see there's a score here, 50 and 50, and that's how likely something is to be true. So if you dragged that clue to a suspect, it would add that number of points? How guilty does this make them look? In this case, it's kind of arbitrary. I'm just picking magic numbers right now that work with the balance that I'm looking for. But right now you could say, okay, this is just Archie's claim. He could be lying. Maybe later on we'll find things to support his claims that will make them have a higher score, or contradict them, which makes them more likely to be lies. But for right now, what makes sense for this relationship, I think, is he went to the kitchen at 4 and noticed the plate was gone at 4:30. So let me select this. So yeah, everyone who is in the kitchen from 4 to 4:30 is a suspect. And then you can press the back button and it will save your progress if you were in the middle of a puzzle that was quite large and got a little bit confused. But you'll notice now this is grayed out, so it will only be green if you found all of the necessary clues to complete like a logical network, and it will collapse or remove clues that you don't need anymore for any particular purpose. So let's explore a bit more now that we've done the tutorial. So let's walk around, and we see A and B at their desks in the office. So let's talk to A. So A is kind of like the high performing but humble person in the squash squad. He always take notes on what he's doing. So he's just saying that all detectives should take meticulous notes. And so he has meticulous notes of everything he was doing. So you can see now we're scrolling because we got a bunch of clues from A. And we'll do one more puzzle and zoom in a bit. So now we see this clue that we had before. Everyone who is in the kitchen from 4 to 4:30 is a suspect. This is the clue that we created before. And we see that A was in the break room or the kitchen around 4:05 p.m. So we can see that everyone between 4 and 4:30 is a suspect, and he was in the kitchen at 4:05. Therefore, he could have taken the cookies. So that's the conclusion we're getting from that. And you can see it took the average of these two scores to give it a score of 35. But then we have this other clue. According to A's notes, he only took a few cookies, made tea, and went back to his desk where he continued working. So basically, he's claiming he didn't take any cookies. So this could be a contradiction. And now we see the score has lowered to 15. So let's go back, and now we see our new clue is here. So let's add this. We have his new suspect card. We can now add it. And so we see this meter goes up, and when the meter's all the way full, you can safely accuse someone with no penalty. But you can accuse someone earlier, at least that's my plan. I haven't implemented the court sequence yet. I don't think it will be that long, but you can at least go to Archie's office and pick the person who you want to accuse. But you won't, in the future, you might receive a penalty for picking the wrong person, unless they're at 100%. So I'm still working through how that trial system might work, but this is just the meat of it, is investigating and analyzing. So that's B up there, but let's look around a bit more. So this is the quality of art that I started out with in testing. This is a tavern, which isn't ready yet. This is the office, as it's clearly labeled. And this is the library. So the library is also not ready yet, but I was planning on this being sort of a mini game where you can type in just different keywords you find throughout your investigation and maybe get some clues from the books in the library. So in this case, some lemon butter spritz cookies are missing. So if you typed in the keyword lemon, you would actually get this article on these lemon fairies that are attracted to anything that looks or smells or tastes or feels like a lemon. And so that's just, maybe it won't be related by the end, but maybe something's going on with some mischievous lemon fairies. I'm reminding you guys again that this is kind of a magical kingdom, even if the art right now is drab. So this is the actual kitchen, and there will be more to do, but this is our test evidence. So we see some coffee grounds in the sink. And one thing that Archie mentioned, I realize I've been, going quickly through the dialogue. He mentioned in his dialogue that Oh no, A did. A saw B near the sink and she was washing out her mug. So that might be something that supports that she was near the sink washing out her mug. So let's talk to her. And she says she was washing out her mug. So we have multiple people supporting that claim. So let's actually check that out. We do have enough to do the analysis. And you can see I realize the clues are kind of jumbled up, but we actually do see this clue before that was connected, where A could have taken the cookie, so we can move that off to the side. We see everyone who was in the kitchen from 4 to 4:30 is a suspect, and so we have two options. Archie saw B in the kitchen at 4 p.m., so that can be connected to this, or B herself claims she was in the break room at 4. So let's say we use this one. They're the same score. It really won't matter which one we choose. So we see that Archie's claim supports B's claim. Okay, and then we found these coffee grounds in the sink, so that also supports that she says she was washing her mug, so we see the score go up. And then finally, B also says she didn't take any cookies, she just went back to her desk, so we'll say that contradicts the fact that she could have taken the cookies, because she's at least claiming that she didn't. But who knows if that's true. And then we can move the group around. Okay, let's go back. So now we can keep matching the clues. So B could have taken the cookies. She seems a little more guilty. Let's see. Lemon Fairy's unrelated. A saw B near the sink. She was still there when he left, so that's making her seem a little more suspicious. And like I said, I'll have to tweak the writing a bit to make sure it's obvious which ones should be matched to a suspect and which ones will be used in this puzzle. Finally, I think the last clue to complete this, just to show you guys the end-to-end scenarios, this is supposed to be the bathroom. There's a performance report where A is the number one person and B seems to be the lowest scorer. Let's see. I think we might need, I'm trying to remember my own game. Right, so we say I've run out of leads, we've done everything, we've looked everywhere, we've talked to everyone. So we say, hey, can I just look through people's stuff? I need to write a better transition for that, but we see A's gone. But we got the key to everyone's stuff, and we found the cookies in his desk, but we also found a bunch of other lemon stuff. So this is where you might actually be prompted to go back to the library and type in the lemon keyword to see what lemon research you can come up with. But now we have the last puzzle, which is that we have lemon fairies attracted by lemon things, and we found lemon paraphernalia in A's desk. So let's see if these are related. And so someone, because we found out in the library that the lemon fairies, they cause a lot of trouble, and it's a common thing to do to someone you hate, to hide lemon things like under their porch or in their stuff to get lemon fairies to mess with them. I know it sounds silly, but someone could be trying to sabotage A. And then we find this performance report where B is on the bottom, so that looks suspicious. Maybe it's not her, but she's looking more and more suspicious. So now we can add this to her bar. It's at 100, so she looks kind of guilty. So we go back to Archie, our boss, and we're like, hey, I'd like to accuse someone. We can accuse him. And he's like, are you sure? And you tell him he's like going to do an elaborate setup. But technically you could accuse him in the final version. But let's say we'd like to accuse B. And then we kind of fade to black, and this is where we would start the next chapter, which would be a sequence kind of like in Phoenix Wright. You can tell I'm a big fan of that game, where you could take her to trial, and maybe if it's not her, you'll still gain information, and you won't get a penalty because she was at 100% when you accused her. So hopefully some of this makes sense and you get a feel for what I want this game to be and what's already finished. And yeah, I mean, I really have no clue where this is gonna go. I know that I really enjoyed making it. I learned a lot, and the process definitely reaffirmed my passions and goals and kind of the direction I want to go in. So I'm just super interested to see what you guys think. And I don't know, we'll go from there. So most importantly, have a happy day wherever you are. I'll see you guys soon. Bye.